Hello again. Welcome to another of my reviews of Tai Lopez's 67 Steps. We're up to step number 47. This one is the 5% tweak, nothing janky. And when good enough is perfect, the paradox of perfectionism. Tai talks about how he thinks people kind of fall into two extremes quite often. And that is, either you are always jumping into things, doing lots and lots and leaving things half done, trying lots of different ideas, or you're somebody who sits back, you're meticulous, you get everything figured out beforehand, all the implications, do your research, and then maybe you start. And he calls these the momentum builders versus the perfectionists. And even though I think those terms are weighted terms and give an implied goodness to one or the other, he says there's no right or wrong. Of course there isn't. You are who you are. You do need a balance, and you can't feel guilty if you're one or the other. You just have to learn how to, as he says, do some tweaks to make sure that you're doing balancing out your tendencies. And because sometimes, you can't build a life or a career on your personality type. Sometimes you're going to be put into uncomfortable situations, uncomfortable for your type. And so you need to figure that a little bit out. So, when you're an introvert, sometimes you have to be an extrovert. Tai talks about doing what he calls a 5% tweak, and that is, don't worry about the big change. Don't say, okay, well, tonight I gotta go out, gotta go to this party, and I've gotta be somebody from Boogie Nights or whatever. I gotta really get out there and be totally not an introvert, and that is going to give you great stress and panic, and you're probably going to fail at it. Look at doing small changes. In that particular case, just going to the party probably is a good step if you're like that, so badly introverted. But just make these small changes to balance yourself out. So that's the one thing. But I realize this now, that both of these changes are kind of addressing the same type. But anyway, his other one was a quote from Colin Powell, who said, start acting when you have 40% of the information, which unfortunately says a lot about what Colin Powell did, now that I think about that. But you plan enough, but you don't overplan. You don't wait too long. Of course you need to get information. If we're talking about business, we'll stick with business, not politics. If we stick with business, you have to learn about your competitors. You have to have the basic idea of your business plan, about your key components. I'm a big believer in this thing called the business model canvas that maybe I'll do a review on some other time after I finish 67 steps. But you have to build up these ideas. You have to spend at least a week trying to figure out your business before you jump into your business. And it's the same with diet, actually. You don't just, I heard something about the Atkins diet, so I'm just gonna eat meat now. That's not the way it works. You should get some idea, some understanding. And he calls this having nothing janky, and janky, I guess, means not quite right. His example was his example was, you put a desk together not quite right. If you'd spent a couple more minutes, it would have been a great desk, So spend the right amount of time. Again, a lot of these steps sound like common sense, and they are common sense, but the truth is we don't use our common sense very much. There's a great book, maybe even 20 years ago now, called The Death of Common Sense by Philip Howard. And yes, we just seem to let someone else do our common sense, and therefore we don't do anything. And so that was that. There was a lot of other stuff he talked about in here that I didn't think was quite applicable to a summary. So let me just quickly go back and summarize my summary. And that is, try and be balanced. There's a time for perfectionism, and there's a time for the opposite. Momentum builders, he calls them. More impulsive behavior. And there's always try and strike a balance between that. I live here in Japan, and perfectionism is a crippling disease here, because people will not try something if they don't think they can do it perfectly. And that is why a lot of things in Japan are great, because they work hard and hard to make them perfect, but it's also very, very stressful for the people. And I've, for quite some time, said that perfectionism is a rampant disease in Japan that causes a lot of damage. So, yeah, try and be a bit more adventurous, and but do some planning. That's the bottom line. So here's the 3 questions. When have you been paralyzed because you were waiting on more information? Waiting on information is a great procrastination technique I see people using. Question number 2. When have you not gathered enough information and simply jumped in? And sunk because you didn't realize there were rocks in the water. You didn't realize that somebody else is doing the exact same thing for cheaper and better, or whatever. And question number 3, what are you going to do these things differently? And the answer is, of course, you're going to strike a balance. All right, that's step number 47. Oh my gosh, that means 20 to go. And I'm excited, kind of in the home stretch here. I hope you're getting a lot from these. Doing these summaries, I said before, I started out doing these summaries just for myself, kind of to beat these steps in concepts into my brain. And that's been working great. And I really am happy that some of you are finding these useful. And stick around, watch the other ones. I know some of them at the beginning and things, the video quality is not good because I didn't think anyone else would watch them. But now that I know people are watching, I'm trying to do a bit technically better job. All right, subscribe wherever that is, down here somewhere, maybe, or here maybe. And see you soon.